Hello and welcome to the very first live stream for the Inner You. This is my this is my very first live stream ever. So if things are a little bit glitchy, you'll have to bear with me, but hopefully it will go pretty well. So today is the new moon in Scorpio and it is November 7th, 2018. So I thought that I would go ahead and do some readings if anyone ends up joining me. Right now, there's no one here, but if anyone does pop in, then I'm offering free readings. So I have a few of my decks here that I enjoy using. I'll go over them in just a second. But for anyone that may watch this video later, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I'm the owner of The Inner You, which is a website, www.theinneryou, spelled Y-E-W, like the tree.com. And what my goal is with The Inner You is to provide readings for people, but more importantly, to help people learn how to read cards for themselves or learn about astrology, energy healing, and many other different metaphysical tools, modalities, that sort of thing. Because I'm a firm believer that we all have various gifts and abilities within us, and um, I'm a bit, I guess you could say, a little bit more I lean more towards the teaching aspect than the doing, but I definitely do offer readings. But my main focus is to help you learn how to access these abilities and these parts of yourself. Um, but definitely, of course, it's always helpful sometimes to have someone else read for you. I have been reading oracle cards and tarot cards for a handful of years now, and I still get readings from other people. I find it really helpful. It's very validating sometimes. Um, Also, sometimes it can help point out something that maybe I'm a little resistant to see, um, or just kind of need to hear from someone else. So, anyhow, so let me go ahead and get started and tell you a little bit about these decks that I'm using today. Um, right here in the front, I have the Oracle of Rama, which is one of my favorite decks. Sorry, just a moment. I'm switching over here. So the Oracle of Rama here, it's one of my favorite decks. I call this kind of my heavy hitter because, well, it's very concise. If any of you have ever used this deck, I'll show you. Let's see. It's used in a way that's a little bit different from your typical Oracle deck. There's a guidebook, which is pretty much necessary to use. I don't think anyone could memorize all of the different interpretations. It comes with an instruction card. There's an instruction card in there. And the instructions are pretty brief, pretty basic. Anyhow, the way that this deck works is there are a handful of divine guidance cards. So for example, let's see, we have Rama. And as you can see, there's a number down at the bottom. So there's a handful of these cards. And I believe there's 7. Yeah, there's 7 of them. And then there's these main cards here. And they have a lot of information on there. So let's see. For example, this card is number 6, the Great Reign of Rama, Prosperity. So let's see. I want to make it focus a little bit. So you can see there's a fair amount of information on here. Well, the way that this deck works is you choose one of these cards and one of these cards. And there's various numbers, and basically it's like, well, on this card, for example, there's 1 through 7. There's 7 different uh, meanings, interpretations for this card, depending on which divine guide card you chose. So, for example, if I had chosen number 2, I do not know how to pronounce that, Shatrugna, Shatrugna. If I had chosen this one, then the interpretation for this card would be leaving the circle of protection brings disaster. And then there's a much greater description in the booklet. But anyhow, that might be a little bit confusing to you. But since there's not really anyone here quite yet, let me just double check. It looks like there's one watching, but I believe that's me. So let's see. So anyhow, this deck, though, is one that I use anytime that I have a serious question, or more of a serious in the spiritual sense, something that just seems really important, where I feel that I really need to get a very accurate and concise message from the divine. Now, of course, any of these decks can give you that as well, but for myself, I just feel like the Oracle of Rama deck is really powerful for giving just really deep, um, not deep as in depth exactly, but deep as in powerful, extremely powerful readings. So that's that deck. Um, this deck right here, the Enchanted Map, this is a deck I've been using quite a bit lately. It's by Colette Baron Reed. This is a really awesome deck. I love this one so much. Now, in the guidebook, she talks a bit about how kind of her perspective when she was writing it. But, you know, one thing about oracle cards and tarot cards is there is the intention of the author, but of course, you, the reader, may sometimes find that the way you use the deck may be a little bit different from what the author originally intended. So it can, you know, you're not limited. Just because an author may intend one thing doesn't mean you're stuck in only using that deck for that particular reason or in that particular way. For example, I personally don't like to use um, reversals that often, where the card is turned upside down and where you have a different meaning because the card is reversed, is upside down. In regular tarot, I tend to just not really like using them very much. So a lot of times at the beginning of the reading, I will kind of check in with spirit and see whether I should or should not use reversals in that particular reading. However, with this deck, the Enchanted Map, I do use reversals the majority of the time. And part of the reason I feel more comfortable doing that is because in the guidebook here, there are pretty, you know, there's equal descriptions, equal length descriptions for upright and reversed cards. And the meanings are very different. Some people will say there's some different opinions out there about what a reversal means. With tarot, some people will say that a reversal is drawing your attention to that card more so, that that card is, you know, that the energy of that card is more powerful, or that for one reason or another you should focus a bit more on that particular card. However, some people are of the belief that a reverse tarot card means the opposite of what the upright card means. And even still, there's other beliefs and theories around that as well. For, you know, those aren't the only two ways that people look at that, but it can get kind of convoluted. Um, So I think of it, it's more of a personal thing. You don't have to use reversals, but in this particular deck, the Enchanted Map, I do tend to use the reversals. And you can see the cards are quite beautiful. Some really neat illustrations. And I realize some of these are upside down. Like I said, this is my first live stream, so I'm also still just getting used to using the camera in general. I've done most of my readings for people in person, also on the phone, but most of the time I read for people in person. So the Enchanted Map I find to be a really powerful deck for kind of gauging what's going on in a person's life at that moment. Kind of what are the key elements, key energies, key events, things that they may or may not be aware of, and also advice. It's really good, I feel, for guidance on how to best access the current energies, what opportunities are available for you, that sort of thing. So that's the Enchanted Map. And I'm just going to check here real quick because I haven't quite figured out how to see if oh, there's 3 people here now. Oh yes, hello. Hi Phantom Punk. Are you still here? This is my first time doing a live stream, so I'm still learning how to use this. So hello, 4th person. Okay, so let's see. So Phantom Punk would like a reading. Let's see here. So my other deck that I have here is the Fairy Tarot. I haven't really been using this a whole lot, but it's a pretty neat deck. And also the Psychic Tarot. So since I already have the Enchanted Map out, probably use that one first. So let's see here. Okay, so Phantom Punk would like to know what is my immediate future. So I'm going to go ahead and use the Enchanted Map for this. And let's see. 1 second. All right, so the stream's a little bit delayed. That might be a problem on my end too. But I'll go ahead and get started with that. Okay, so let's see. This is for Phantom Punk. Thank you, by the way, everyone, for joining me. This is, like I said, my very first live stream, and if you check out my channel, you'll realize this is also the first video. I had some other videos up before, but I decided to take them down and kind of revamp my direction with this channel. Feel free to also check out my website. There's information in the description. I'm in the process of switching to a new web host, but you can go visit my old site for much more detailed information about my philosophies and what I do and kind of what I'm kind of focused on. Okay, let me focus on this for a minute. All right, so Phantom Punk, immediate future. And let's see. So I'm going to go ahead and do a 2-card reading. Just go through. I choose my cards a little differently than some people do. You may notice it takes me a little bit longer. That's because I'm specifically asking for each card whether it's the next card that I should draw. And do excuse my silence. I'm just really focusing. I haven't quite mastered the art of talking and choosing cards at the same time. Okay, that's the first card. All right, that's the second card. Now I'm just going to double check that they're in the right position. Like I was saying, this with the enchanted map, I do use reversals, so I do like to make sure that they're in the correct position. Also, I like to check that these are all the correct cards for the reading. So, sometimes I'll get distracted. I use a method, if any of you have ever dowsed, I use a method like that for choosing cards, but instead of using a pendulum, I feel that energy within my body. It's kind of like, I think it's called kinesiology, sort of like that, but it feels like a magnet, sort of. But sometimes I might be thinking of one thing while that's not about the reading and mistakenly draw the wrong card. So I just always like to double check. So yes, these are both the correct cards for the reading, and I just want to double check that they're in the right position. Okay, so the first card that we have is Sacred Pool. And I am doing this as if the viewer is here, or rather, I'm confusing myself and probably confusing you too. It's upright on my end, but it's reversed for you. So this is supposed to be reversed. And then the second card is Ghostlands, also reversed. Okay, so I always tell people that my greatest gift comes with the choosing of the cards, and also sometimes various information comes to me during the interpretation. But I do like to refer to the guidebook because there are some really good things there that aren't always available right here with the cards. And like I said, my greatest gift comes with the choosing of the cards. That's really where my strongest psychic talent comes through, is in the particular choosing of the cards. Whereas some readers, they could almost choose any card and the message is going to come through one way or the other. So this first card here, Sacred Pool. Let's see if perhaps as I'm reading you the description, some various information will come through to you, Phantom Punk. So, Sacred Pool. The world is a reflection of your thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. Embody the love you wish to see in the world. So this card is reversed. It can be difficult to overcome denial when there is a reward for staying where you are. If you can't accept and love yourself, you remain trapped, wearing a false mask of victimhood. The benefit of embracing denial and the victim's mask is that you never have to take a real risk. Dimming your light serves no one. Turning away from the truth that is reflected in the stillness of the sacred pool keeps you in denial, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Such vain efforts lead to a tedious, boring existence. Take the risk and shine your beautiful light into the world. Look in the mirror and see the truth. Surrender the need to self-sabotage. Remember, you have a responsibility not just to yourself, but to the divine spark within you. Courage is not the absence of fear. Accept the discomfort of seeing with clear eyes, and you'll soon find that wondrous adventures are waiting for you. Step into your magical life. Take the leap of faith. Well, that's pretty powerful. sorry, just one second. That's very powerful. This is definitely can be a very hard-hitting deck to work with. It doesn't sugarcoat things, but I feel like in relation to your immediate future, astrologically right now, for example, this is the new moon in Scorpio. So with the new moon, that's always an opportunity to begin afresh, to embark and set intentions. And with it being in Scorpio, of course, even more so, especially when it comes to deep emotional issues, patterns, habits, can be a really powerful, powerful time right now to set those intentions, to set aside any old habits, ways of being, perceptions, views of yourself or the world that may really not be accurate for you anymore. Perhaps you've been dealing with some, some various struggles, and now is the time where you can really choose to move past those things and to begin life afresh in a way. That may sound kind of extreme, but when we have various things like this, for example, like those self-sabotaging, being afraid to really act on your inner truth, being, putting up those barriers that prevent you from living your truth because of the fear of, possibilities, the fear of harm, the fear of rejection, any of these things. That's very limiting. And if you're able to move past that, then you definitely could be experiencing a profound shift in your life in the near future. But you just have to be willing to take that leap, willing to take that leap of faith that things will work out and that it's for the best, and that it will work out for you. I believe that when you're living your truth, when you're acting on what you feel to be the right thing for yourself, that everything does work out. I feel that when you act in a way that you know deep inside of you is not really what you're supposed to be doing or what you really wanted to be doing, not because someone else tells you that's how things should be, but because you feel it inside you, that when you ignore that for one reason or another, that's when things don't really work out so well. So here with the second card, we have Ghost Lands, also reversed. You can learn from the past and imagine a beautiful future, but you must live in the here and now. I just want to repeat that. You can learn from the past and imagine a beautiful future, but you must live in the here and now. When the Ghostlands card appears reversed, it's a sign that you're wandering in an emotional or intellectual place with no real substance. There is no point. I just have to say that's kind of funny because your name is Phantom Punk. There is no point longing for that which has already gone or hasn't happened yet. Perhaps you've created a fantasy of the good old days, or some elusive utopian destination that lies somewhere in the future when this or that happens to make things better. Live one day at a time. Each day is a new beginning filled with truth and beauty. Stay away from the ghostlands of past and future. Avoid nostalgia and longing for something better. Find joy in what is present in your life today. Also very powerful. I feel like this goes very much so together. And I don't really think I have to go into a lot of detail about that. I think you probably know exactly what I'm talking about here. But I'm just going to switch over here. I wasn't looking at the chat while doing this, so just in case anything. Okay, great. So yeah, Phantom Punk. The big thing here, I think, with this is, you know, as it's pretty clear, clear cut, that live in the present, not live in the future. You're welcome. I hope it helps you in some way. I know it may seem a little wonky, but like I said, this is my first live stream, first time doing a reading live over the internet. Usually it's just one-on-one in person, so I'm a little bit nervous. Okay, but I hope it helps you. You're welcome. So moving on, Nina Love. Okay, so anything good coming my way? Well, I'm sure there probably is, Nina Love, but let's go ahead and do a specific reading for you. I think there's always something good, although sometimes at first it may seem not so good, but eventually it usually evens out, I think. Okay, so let's see, Nina Love. I'm going to go ahead and do a reading for you. Anything good coming my way? Do you have any sort of specific? Oh, awesome. Thank you, Phantom Punk. I'm glad that it resonated well with you. Thanks. Okay, so Nina Love, let's see. Do you have a specific topic or just general wanting to know? How about what positive energies are coming into your life? That sounds kind of like what you're looking at. So let's see. Oh, as far as a job. Okay, sounds good. What sort of positive or are there? Okay, yeah, alrighty. Sounds good. Let me just go ahead. Let me just get a quick drink of water. Alrighty, let's see. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and use the enchanted map for you as well. So let's see real quick. I'm going to go ahead and clear. And let's give it a good shuffle. So same as when I'm choosing the cards, I also ask myself how long to shuffle for. Sometimes I just shuffle until I think I'm good and done, but most of the time I ask. So it's that same method as I do when I'm choosing the cards. I add this because if any of you are learning to read, sometimes I suppose it could be helpful to kind of get some insight into how other people do their readings. I started reading cards before I had discovered that ability within myself. I was dowsing at the time, but I hadn't discovered that I could access that energy within my body. I thought I always had to have a pendulum to get those answers. But anyhow, when I was doing readings with cards before I started, accessing that ability, my readings weren't very accurate. After I discovered that ability, then they became a lot more accurate when I started asking specifically which card I should draw. So I'm just going to take just a moment, set the intention for Nina Love about positive opportunities in the future for jobs. See how many cards I should draw. Okay, so I'm feeling that I'm going to be doing a 3-card reading for you, Nina. I hope that's okay just to call you Nina. Alrighty. Okay, there's the first card. Okay, there we got the second card. Yeah, just waiting on the third card. That's the one, downfall of big decks. Big decks is it can take a long time to get to the card you need. Okay, got that third card now. All right, let me just make sure these are all correct. Alrighty, everything is good. So we got our first card, Sacred Pool. Interesting. I believe that was one of Phantom Punk's cards, but you guys all did see I did shuffle those quite well. But one thing to be aware of, I see this a lot, is a lot of times card readings overlap very much so with astrological events that are going on. So, I would say that probably this 47 Sacred Pool reversed is probably linked to the new moon that's going on right now. I'd have to really look it up to kind of see for certain, but from what I've seen, yes, definitely the Scorpio new moon is about leaving behind emotional habits and connections and ways of being that just really aren't accurate for who you are now. So that's the first card, Sacred Pool reversed. And the second card is the Gentle Gardener reversed. And the last card is Stuck in the Mud upright. Okay, so let's go over this real quick. So the first card, Sacred Pool. I don't know, Nina, if you were here when I was going over Phantom Punk's reading, so I'll just go over this again in case you weren't. Okay, so the Sacred Pool reversed. Oh, okay, you did listen to it. Okay, so you do remember then, so basically this first card, Sacred Pool, then I'll just do a little quick thing since you have 3 cards here. So this card was basically talking about how you can be held back and limited by accepting yourself, loving yourself, how you can remain trapped in that state if you're unwilling to, staying in the same, so with jobs, like what really comes through right now for jobs on this is that perhaps, I don't know if you're currently employed, I kind of get the feeling, and I could be wrong, that maybe you're in a position where, you perhaps have a job already, but you really feel that, like, you're just kind of getting by, and it's like either that you had a job or you currently do. That's not really my gift. My strength is knowing what's going on right now. Okay, yeah, you're looking. But I feel like with this particular card, I would say that don't get caught into a trap of settling for something because you are afraid of letting your real light shine through. So as far as employment goes, maybe you've thought about trying something totally different, or going in a different path, or going back to school to learn a new subject, or getting training in something that you've never done before, but maybe you feel led to it, or you're interested in it, but perhaps you're also struggling with wondering if you actually have the abilities to learn that new thing, or if you have okay, yeah. So, the big message I think with this card here is don't undersell yourself. Don't don't diminish the possibilities because of fear, or wondering if you're good enough or able or capable. I think that I personally feel that if, you know when something is coming from something inside of you, like if you really want to do something. I feel that when you get those urges where you feel like you really want to do something, then you're totally able to do it. You're totally able. Of course, you might have to learn some new things. And just a moment. But I think if you want to do something, you definitely have it in you to do it. So just don't fall into traps of of feeling self-conscious or unworthy or anything like that. And also, if things don't work out right away, hello, Paloma. If things don't work out right away, also don't let that get you down either. Just know that it probably wasn't the best situation for you, and something else better is going to come along. So just try to kind of have a positive outlook as much as possible. I know it can be hard when it comes to changing careers or changing jobs, but having that faith that the right opportunity will come to you, as long as you're doing what you feel led to do, then I think you'll be fine. So the second card here, the Gentle Gardener, also reversed. Be your own person. Be a conscious co-creator. Hi, Paloma. I'll get to yours in just a few minutes. Not your average trans girl. Cool. That's actually my girlfriend. Awesome. Okay, so Gentle Gardener. This is reversed. Do you harbor resentments? How often do you reinforce negativity by affirming lack and limitation? Every time you send out a desire for something but secretly harbor a belief that you're undeserving of it, you plant weeds in the field of your dreams. This is pretty powerful, Nina Love. This is definitely, I think, very much related to this first card here about how perhaps, just be aware to not undersell yourself or limit yourself. So with this, awesome, I'm glad that resonates with you. Hopefully this reading can help you. When the Gentle Gardener appears in the reverse position, she reminds you to be aware of any negative thoughts or selfish motives. She encourages you to step back and pay close attention to what thought seeds you send out into the world. Weeds choke the life out of your beautiful garden. No need to fret, however, because once you recognize this, you can always remove a bad seed and replace it with a healthy one. Forgiveness is your most powerful restorative tool. So in regards to work, new careers, and all that sort of thing, definitely I think this is in line with this first card here. The big message being try to as much as possible, focus on the positive aspects of the situation. Be aware of your thoughts. Be aware especially of like the thought habits that you might have. And maybe just, today on this new moon, maybe just set that intention to shift your thinking, to shift the way that you perceive work, the way that you perceive careers. Your perception of things. And I'm sure you're aware of where you kind of get hung up on that. Awesome. Cool. So, I think that's really your big message right in there. So then this last card, Stuck in the Mud, and this one is upright. 24. Stuck in the mud. You're being invited to stop and savor the wonder of your life. Becoming stuck is sometimes the only way to trick yourself into slowing down and looking around you. In fact, this is a sign that you need to shift your focus away from what you're doing and place your attention elsewhere. Struggling will only get you to even muddier places. Now is not the time to move forward, but to observe. Clarity about your circumstances will come a little later. Stop and find the joy in what you've been overlooking. Soon you'll be out of the mud, but for now, be still and know that Spirit has a plan for you. Well, that's pretty awesome. So, in regards to the work and career focus of this reading, I'd say that, right now is not necessarily a time where, perhaps, it's not the best time to do a lot of pushing forward as far as applications and interviews and all that sort of thing, but that it's a really good time to just kind of take stock. We are in a retrograde period right now. I know Venus is still retrograde for another week or two, and then we're coming up on a Mercury retrograde. So in general, it's kind of, and I believe there's some other planets retrograde. Whenever planets are retrograde, that's a good time to really rethink anything with a RE, like rediscover, reconnect, rethink, relate, renew, anything that is kind of like where you're turning inward. So this card here is basically saying, be aware of where you're at right now. Be aware of the good things that exist right now. And, kind of think of it like, this elephant right here is stuck in the mud, but, they're probably in a really beautiful place. They have a little bird on their back. I'll just kind of show you real quick. Sometimes the illustrations are pretty cool. But, just kind of appreciate what you have right now. And don't push too hard for things to get moving, but trust that they will get moving when the time is right. And, maybe because you're stuck or in a kind of a stasis, like holding pattern right now, it might be a really good time to look at these other two aspects. So, yes, go with the flow, not push yourself, continue to and also focus on, being true to yourself and, focusing on kind of growing that, valuing yourself, valuing your time, your abilities, your strengths, all that good stuff. So, yeah, awesome. I hope that helped you, and I hope it continues to help you, and good luck with your career change and all of that. So, moving on to Paloma. Paloma asks, do you see new love coming soon? Okay. So, with my readings, a lot of times, I don't really focus so much on whether something's going to happen. Thank you, Nina. Blessings to you as well. Thanks. So, Paloma, with my readings, a lot of times I don't really specialize in yes or no sort of questions, but I definitely can give you a reading that is on the topic of love in general. And I'll just check in and tune in with my intuition for a moment and see kind of what comes to me as far as what would be helpful for you. So, just 1 second. I never realized how thirsty I would get doing one of these live streams. Okay. Let's see. Now I just want to check in and see if I should still use this deck or if I should swap to another one. So, yeah, I'm thinking we should just go ahead and stick with this. So I'm going to clear it. the way I like to clear decks, especially if I'm reading for multiple people, is I just knock on it and say the word clear to myself or out loud. Okay, so let's see. This is reading for Paloma about love and love in the future, love coming her way. So I'm just going to be silent for a moment while I set the intentions for this reading for Paloma. So Paloma, what I'm getting that I should do for you is a 2-card reading. And rather than asking whether love will be coming to you, rather I feel that the focus should be for this reading is what aspects of your life or what energies you might want to focus on in order to best help bring love into your life. Kind of like if you're planting a garden, you wouldn't just go and throw some seeds on the ground. You would go and you would prepare the garden bed. You might add some fertilizer. You might rake it, you know. Of course, love can come to us no matter where we are in any, place we are in our life. But I think sometimes it can be helpful that if we're kind of just naturally focusing on some aspect of our life, then sometimes love just naturally comes along. So that's kind of the focus I'm feeling for this reading. So kind of a 2-card reading covering what areas of your life that you can be focusing on that would most benefit and make that garden bed ready for love to come to your life, if that makes sense. So I'm going to do 2 cards here. Give it a good shuffle. Well, this is really fun. I'm so glad I decided to do this live stream today. I've been wanting to do it. I was a little bit nervous. I had to do a lot of intention setting before I got started. And my face isn't even on camera. I decided just to have my hands on camera because right now it helps me because I'm not distracted. I can be a little bit vain sometimes and worry about how I look. And this just allows me to be a little bit more comfortable, but I'm sure that in the future at some point I'll probably record or do some live streams with the rest of me on camera. So, plus this just kind of helps us to focus in on the cards, which is the main star of the show. Okay, so for Paloma, really pretty name too, Paloma. I've heard that name before, but I can't remember what it means. I believe it's Spanish. Okay. So 2-card reading. Okay, there's the first card. Okay, there's the second card. More water. Just a second, sorry. Okay. All right, these are both the correct cards, and let's just make correct position. Okay, so feeling that one of these cards, one or both, is not in the correct position, so I'm just going to see, since we are using reversals. Okay, so I'm feeling like this card needs to be switched around. Okay, so now they're both in the correct position. So I just had, felt that this first card was supposed to be switched. So for the first card, we have Rescue, and it is upright. For the second card, we have Golden Palace, also upright. So both of these cards are upright for you, Paloma. And 16. And as I was saying before, basically this is kind of the energies, aspects of your life that if you focus on these aspects, kind of focus your energy on them, maybe work through whatever they're asking you to work through, address whatever it's asking you to address, then that's going to make the energy, make that space, the space of you, um, more hospitable or more welcoming, or however you want to look at it, to love. Um, so, with the garden analogy, you could think of this as being raking the garden, getting the garden bed ready for those seeds of love to be planted. So, this first card, Rescue, you are always safe and secure and free to be yourself. Asking for help isn't easy for many successful people. However, that's what you need to do now as you expand your life. If you find yourself troubled, you can expect help with whatever issue is at hand now. You need only ask, and assistance will come your way. The most important support you can expect is from Spirit. Get into a right relationship with the divine, and you'll see that many conditions line up as if by magic to provide you with all the help you need. Ask and you will receive. There is no need to fear. Safety is a place within. Wow. So, in regards to the topic of this reading, I don't know, of course, I don't know what your connection to the spiritual realm is, but most of us um, would agree, and most spiritual, well, I don't want to say most, but most of the time you're going to hear that in order to get any help from the spiritual realm, the divine, archangels, spirit guides, what have you, that in order to get assistance, you do need to ask for it. That spirit is not going to intervene and help you with something unless you specifically ask for that help. And of course, there's lots of different theories on why that is. I'm sorry, just 1 second. I don't know why my alarm's going off. Um, but um, but just know that help is available to you. So perhaps if it may be helpful, um, you know, there may be something that isn't even related specifically to love that you feel the need to ask for help about. But definitely your questions and concerns, fears, worries, whatever that have to do with your love life or future love life, you can definitely ask Spirit for help. And by Spirit, I mean however you connect to Spirit. A person could be an atheist and still have some way of connecting to Spirit. It could be your own inner spirit or what have you. But I imagine since you're here getting to reading, you probably have some sort of spiritual beliefs. So just remember to ask for help, and that always, 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 no matter what, that help is available. It's always available to you. And you can ask for help about anything. There's nothing too big or too small to ask for help about. And I think the more you ask for help, the more it comes to you, the more you're welcome, the more it's available. Yes, Valerie, I'll help. You can ask a question, but I'm just finishing up here with Paloma's reading first. So So yeah, that support from spirit. And then also perhaps you might have someone that you know in person that you might want to ask for some help. You know, I don't really know exactly how that would manifest for you, but I think that that's something hopefully that you understand a little better than I do. Yes, Red Moon. But after you, it's probably you and Valerie. I think will probably be um, my last questions for this session. But I'll probably get on again in a little while later. But my daughter's going to be coming home soon for a little bit. So this next card is the Golden Palace. That's a really pretty card. So this is number 23. So number 23. So Paloma, your second card, the Golden Palace, there's always enough. The Golden Palace card represents good fortune, ambitions fulfilled, wealth, and prosperity. It may also indicate emotional fulfillment, as perhaps you're entering a time of happiness that's long overdue. Wow, that just gave me chills. So I don't know your particular situation, but perhaps it's been a long time since you've had a partner, or who knows. But I feel like this is telling you that there is going to be some positive manifestations going on in the love department with you, um, and that perhaps you've been waiting for a long time for something special like this to occur. Um, let's see. The message here is that self-worth isn't measured by what you have, no matter how abundant your life is. Instead, it comes from what you are, how authentically you're living your life, and how much love you're willing to share. Granted, receiving this card does indicate material gain and a furthering of tangible rewards, but things come and go, and knowing your true value leads to even greater riches now. Share the wealth. So I feel like the message in regard to this particular reading is that, whether you have a partner or not, it's important to value yourself. And that whether, like, if you were in a love relationship right now, that doesn't set your value higher or lower. And if you're not in a love relationship, it doesn't set your value higher or lower. That has, oh, this darn phone, sorry. I do apologize. Next time I'll make sure I turn off all my alarms before I do a live stream. Okay, so yeah, this, who you're partnered with, what your romantic situation is, or what it will be in the future, it really does not have anything to do with who you are. You are who you are, regardless of what your relationship status is. A relationship status doesn't change that. So at this time, it's probably just a really good idea to really focus in on who you are right now, making sure that you are living that authentic life, and that you're not looking for people or situations for things to be a certain way in order for you to value who you are. Value yourself, value all the love you have inside of you right now. Um, it doesn't matter what your situation is. You are still you. You are still Paloma, no matter what your love situation is. So just, I feel like I'm rambling a little bit, but hopefully you get what I'm saying. That it's just a really good opportunity right now to focus in on who you really are and love that and value that, acknowledge that. Even if sometimes you feel like you are the only person that really sees that and acknowledges that, then, you know, just make that a priority. Just 1 second. Honey, I'm streaming, I'm live. So if you can just be really super quiet, please. Okay. So, yep. So that is for you, Paloma. Just, and also right back to this first card, you are always safe and secure and free to be yourself. So I feel like overall, the big message is, you know, remember to ask for help from your spiritual team, and also really value and acknowledge who you are right now. And, you know, maybe part of the message here is to ask Spirit for help on doing that. You know, asking Spirit for help on being aware and thankful for who you are already, and just really appreciating yourself. I guess that's what I'm looking at, kind of seeing. Ask for Spirit to help you in fully appreciating who you are, and completely eliminating the need for someone else to acknowledge that in you, that you can just totally acknowledge how great you are without someone else having to do it for you. And then down the line, you're going to have someone acknowledge all those great things about you. They're going to love you. They're going to see all of that awesomeness that is you. But right now is a time for you to just kind of focus in on acknowledging it yourself, and really seeing it and knowing it yourself. So yes, I hope that helped you, Paloma. You're welcome. So let's see. So Valerie. So Valerie says that she has an interest in a Pisces and was wondering if I should continue to pursue him or let it be. And she is an Aquarius. Interesting. Huh. I'm sure that's an interesting combination. And of course, I think, you know, as far as astrology goes, clear. Definitely, you don't want to just look at sun signs. I can't really just go off of that sort of thing. And hopefully you're not just going off of that either. I'm assuming you're somewhat into astrology, since you mentioned your sign and their sign. Let's see. So basically, you have an interest in a Pisces, wondering if you should continue or let it be. Okay, so let me just kind of tune in for a second, Valerie, and kind of see how I should word this. So actually, for this reading, I'm feeling like I should use the Oracle of Drama deck. If any of you were here at the beginning, then you saw me talk a little bit about this. This is a deck that is used in a really different way than the typical Oracle deck. So it's a really intense, kind of straight to the point sort of deck. Okay, cool, Valerie. Yeah, you know what? I have a hard time reading those charts too. I have to look everything up, and I've been studying astrology for quite a few years, and I still have trouble just looking at a chart and automatically being able to know what it all means. I'm actually in the process of trying to design a more user-friendly natal chart than those circular charts. Okay, so let's see, just one moment. I'm just doing a quick little checking in. Okay, so this isn't quite what you asked for, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you two mini readings, two readings with this deck. I'm going to do one reading, sort of an outcome reading if you were to continue pursuing the Aquarius, and an outcome reading of if you would not. So it's kind of like a two-path reading, but we're doing two separate readings. Um, so let's see. And, oh, I'm sorry. Yes, the Pisces. I misread that. You're the Aquarius. Okay. So this is about whether Valerie the Aquarius should pursue the Pisces. Cool. Okay. So let's see. So the first reading is going to be if you would choose not to. Kind of what the general message is, like what would be the general outcome if you chose to not pursue the Pisces. This darn thing. I would go, I'm just afraid it's going to take a minute to turn these all off. I don't know why I have a million alarms set. Okay, all alarms are off now. Okay, sorry about that. Okay. Okay, so this first reading is going to be about if you choose to not pursue the Pisces. And what I'm hoping this will do is just kind of give you a little bit of insight into the situation, because ultimately you have to go with what you feel, you know. And that could be a combination of, you know, my first thought is, why wouldn't you? I mean, you don't answer that. But in your mind, you know, if you're interested in someone, why wouldn't you pursue it? You know, why wouldn't you pursue them? Yes, very true. I always have a million alarm set. I'm a very heavy sleeper. So, so Valerie, that would be my first question: is why wouldn't you pursue it? So, and there must be some reasons, you know. But here with this first reading, we're going to look at what would happen, or kind of what would be going on if you choose to not pursue it. Perhaps you would feel like you weren't acting on what you felt was best, or maybe deep down there's a reason why you feel you shouldn't pursue it, and so maybe it would be beneficial if you didn't. So got that shuffled. Now we shuffle this, so we're choosing a card from each thing. This, like I said, the way this deck works is quite different. Okay, so we're going to choose our Spirit Divine Guide card first. Okay, so this is our Divine card for this one. So Valerie says, I'm just kind of tired of not saying anything. So I'm on the edge of telling him, but my intuition goes against my mind. Well, and astrologically, you probably know that right now Venus is retrograde. I don't know if you met this person before the Venus retrograde, but if you met them during the retrograde, chances are, if you didn't know them from before, then perhaps you knew them in a past life. A lot of times, things like new relationships occurring during a Venus retrograde, usually don't last, but sometimes they can. But usually it's something from the past trying to be resolved, a past issue around love, desire, that sort of thing. So perhaps, you know, your intuition is telling you not to act because maybe it's just not the right time. So that's a big thing right now with Venus retrograde, is that you may be thinking about a lot of things and your decisions or what you're thinking of might be where you want to go, you know, the direction you want to take, but it just might not be the right time. So that's something to keep in mind. That's from an astrological perspective. Okay, but let's go ahead and choose a second card for this reading. About if you were to not pursue it, this might be the outcome. So, let's see, second card I'm choosing. Alrighty, so got that second card chosen. So let's see. So I'm going to turn this upright for a second. So we have the holy name, the power of pure devotion, Rama's name, number 7, and the great story begins, new birth. Let's see. Okay. It's been a while since I've used this deck, so bear with me for a moment. I have to remember it's literally been probably like 7 or 8 months since I've used this deck. So let's see here. So the way this works is we have to look up these numbers, each mean something. It's just going to take me a moment. So we got the great story begins. I'll probably one of these days do a review and kind of tutorial on this deck. But first I'll have to relearn how to use it since I'm a little rusty. So let's see, number 1, section 2, and 7. Okay, so it's 1, 2, 7 that we're looking at. 1, 2, 7. Okay, so this may not make a lot of sense, but I'm going to read it to you anyway. Important associates are coming to us, an alliance of friends and family that we need to achieve our goal. With such a convergence of forces, much can be achieved in times to come. Great help is coming our way. So I know that may not make a lot of sense, but that's if you were to not take action regarding pursuing this Pisces right now. And that's right now. If I was to do this reading again after Venus goes direct, that would be really different. My intuition is saying that probably you shouldn't really pursue anything right now. That you should wait until Venus goes direct. But that's also the astrologer side of me talking clear. So I'm going to go ahead and do another reading for this. If kind of what would be the outcome if you did pursue things right now with the Pisces. And I know that what I said just now on this might not make any sense. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, but one thing that I do notice is that it was positive. It was about, you know, friends, associates, other people helping you in some way. So perhaps that means something to you. Let's see. So let's. Okay, so that's going to be the first Divine Guide card there. And Cancer Moon with a Gemini rising. And you're an Aquarius. Yeah, that just, thank you for that, but that just kind of muddles it a little bit more. Personally, I don't really usually mix astrology and oracle cards that much unless kind of something comes up specifically. But I mean, certainly I take it into account, but right on the fly, it's a little bit, it just kind of makes things a little more murky. But that's a cool combination, definitely very interesting. I bet you're a pretty interesting person. It's cool that you have that Cancer moon balancing the Gemini and Aquarian energies. I'm sure that you come across as a very fun but very sensitive person. Okay, so let's see what this next card is. So this is if you do go ahead and pursue this person right now, likely outcome. And I apologize if there's a lot of background noise. I'm not alone here anymore. Sorry. Please, just be quiet, please. Okay. This is a pretty big deck. Lots of cards to go through. Okay, so this is the second card here. All right, let's see what we got here. Lakshma, the power of accomplishment, number 6, Rama's brother companion, with 4, calm within the storm, seeking the prize. So let's see. Six, 4, 5, 4, 5, 6, 4, 5, 6. Be prepared to travel with the city. Okay, let's see. 4, 5, 6. 4, 5, 6. Okay. So the interpretation for 4, 5, 6 is, I'll turn this around so you guys can possibly see it a little better. Spiritual and worldly powers are working together for a common goal of human welfare. Our will and our soul work hand in hand. Great achievements are guaranteed with such a grouping of forces. The time to move on has come, and we must proceed with determination, being prepared to face the obstacles along the way. Well, I don't know about you, but that seems like it fits a lot better with the question than the first one, which was what would be the outcome if you did not move forward with this. So one thing that really sticks out here is our will and our soul work hand in hand. You mentioned earlier about your intuition and your mind being at opposing forces. You know, we could think of our will as being our mind and our soul as being our intuition. That's not necessarily how things are, but it's just one way to look at it. Or often like what we want, what we need, these different dualities. But the big thing that really sticks out here is that they really do work hand in hand, ultimately. may not always be the easiest path, but ultimately they do work together, according to this at least. Of course, you might disagree. But it's interesting that it goes on to say that great achievements are guaranteed with such a grouping of forces. Could also look at this as how when your will and your soul are aligned, that great things come of it. So that's interesting, because right now you were saying that you feel that they're opposing, like your mind is saying one thing, your mind is saying that you are sick of not saying anything, but your intuition is saying you should wait. So I guess through this rather convoluted reading, because it's probably been one of the most convoluted readings I've ever done, if you're not confused, I sure am. But I do think the message and your answer did end up coming through. Not necessarily directly in the cards as they were drawn and read, but through the reading itself. And I think the message is that as long as your mind and your intuition are not on the same page, you shouldn't take any action. So, and I had the intuition at the beginning that you already knew what you should do, but that perhaps you were kind of hoping that someone else might tell you something different. But I think that the answer is that as long as your mind and your intuition are not on the same page, then you should not take any action. And that you will probably, I think, that you will get to a point where you will feel that it's time to take action. I think that just on an intuitive level, not based on these cards, but I do think on an intuitive level that probably after Venus goes direct, maybe after Mercury goes direct too, because it's going to be going retrograde pretty much right after Venus goes direct. Maybe after you get some more planets direct, that might be a better time to move forward on a romantic level. Maybe in the meantime, maybe just focus on talking to this person as a friend or coworker or whatever it may be, the situation. But ultimately, I think that you yourself, you know what's best, and I think that when you feel that inner peace inside of you, as cheesy as that may sound, but when you feel that sense of peace about the situation, like for example, maybe you just suddenly feel like now is the right time and you feel a peace about it. You don't have that tension about it. You just feel that it's really the right thing to do, the right time, the right moment, the right words, whatever. When you feel that, then I think that's the right time. But that's just an example. Ultimately, my point is that you'll know when it's the right time. And I just trust that. Trust that you'll know when it's the right time. I do think you probably will move forward in that direction, but it's just not the right time yet. And what will come of it, can't really say, but it doesn't, that's not the point. The point is you acting on it. That's the point. So I hope that helped you in some way. I do hope that helped you in some way, Valerie. So, Red Moon. Moving on. How does the Capricorn feel about me? He has been acting weird these days. He's very friendly and we spent so much time together, then all of a sudden... You're welcome, Valerie. I hope that helped you, and good luck with all that. Perhaps you can check back in the future and let us know how things went. So, Red Moon, you spent a lot of time with this Capricorn. Then all of a sudden it seems like he's nervous and wants to avoid me. Purple Violet, I would love to answer a question for you, but I'm going to be logging off here in a little bit. Red Moon is the last person that I'm reading for right now. But I will probably come back later on this evening because it is a new moon. It's a really great day for doing readings and intentions. So if you would like to subscribe or hit the notification button and whatnot, then you'll know when I'm back on. I do apologize, but I'm just getting really hot and hungry, and I don't think anyone would enjoy me eating while I'm doing a reading. I just need to go cool off for a little bit. For some reason, it's really warm in here. Okay, so, but I will definitely, I would love to read for you, but just it's going to be probably 2 or 3 hours before I get back on. Probably like 2 hours, something like that. So I know it's probably getting late for some of you. Okay, so Red Moon. Red Moon, are you still here? Okay, awesome, Purple Violet. Cool. I'll definitely be back on, at least for a little while later on. And I'll remember your name. So, Red Moon. Okay, cool, you're still here. Okay, so Red Moon. I don't do readings specifically, like talking about how someone feels about you. But I can do kind of a general reading that looks at the current connection between you guys, like what's going on. So if that will help. So I think that's probably the easiest thing that I can do that will be most helpful for you. So let's see, I'm just trying to decide what deck to use. Okay, so I'm going to use the Psychic Tarot for this reading. And Red Moon. Okay. So yeah, so for your reading, I'm going to use the Psychic Tarot. And basically, we're going to ask, what are the energies going on between Red Moon, who is a Virgo, and Capricorn, interest, let's see. So I'm assuming that this is someone that you've been hanging out with, maybe dating, casually getting to know. All right. Okay, so I'm just going to take a minute to tune in and see how many cards I should draw for you, Red Moon. And the intention I'm setting for this reading, for kind of the topic, is what are the energies at play right now between Red Moon and this Capricorn that she is asking about? What are the energies between them? What's the main dynamics right now going on in their connection? And specifically focusing on the other person, not on Red Moon, focusing more on, okay, yeah, so Red Moon says, we're friends, but I'm interested in him. Okay, so just one thing to be aware of, when I'm reading for kind of tuning into other people's energy, they're not present right here with us. So they can't directly give me permission to tap into their energy and kind of read where they're at. But I do ask, from afar, ask their spirit and their spiritual team to share what information they're okay with sharing. But because it's not them directly, giving permission, I can't really guarantee what sort of information is going to be available. So just a moment while I kind of check in there. I do feel like there's some permission given. So, okay, and of course, I should give a with something especially like this, definitely want to give a disclaimer that with readings like this, there's a lot that's about interpretation and how we can sometimes interpret, like one person, or I should say, 5 people could interpret the same energy in different ways. So, honest Onyx, I apologize, but I was just telling Purple Violet the same thing. I'm reading my last reading right now, but I'm going to be signing back on in a couple hours. I just really need to go get something to eat. But if you'd like to subscribe or check back in a couple hours, I definitely will be reading again. And I would love to answer your question or do a reading for you at that time. I do apologize. I've just been on for an hour and a half already, and I need a little bit of a break. So, okay, so back to Red Moon. Just giving you a little disclaimer. I definitely can't tell you, I can't say, I guarantee 100% this is what this person is thinking and feeling. But this is just kind of an overview of the energy between you guys and what may be going on their end. Kind of like where they're at. But, I'm not making any guarantees. So take everything with a grain of salt, and most importantly, check in with your own intuition. Very important, and your own intuition is always going to be, the most powerful tool. And the best thing is if I'm reading for you and something does align with your own intuition about something, then I think that's validating, that's confirming, But yes, whenever you're reading for other people that aren't directly involved, it's just always a little bit tricky. It's kind of like snooping, energetic snooping. But I always ask permission because I don't want to step on anyone's toes, and you always want to ask permission when you're like delving into someone else's energetic field without their direct knowledge. At least ask their spirit's permission. So, okay. So let's go ahead and jump into this. Reading for Red Moon and Capricorn she's interested in. They are currently friends, but she's interested in more. I'm assuming, I keep saying she, and that's, I'm sorry for assuming, but do you go by she? Or I don't want to misgender anyone unintentionally. Okay, cool. Alrighty. Yeah, I just realized that, and I was like, oh. So anyhow. Alright, so Red Moon, let's see, just give me a moment while I see how many cards to draw for you. So one thing, I kept getting a no, and I was not sure what that was about. So I'm kind of going to shift gears here. What I'm actually getting that I should do is just kind of a general reading about where this Capricorn is at right now. Because I kind of have the feeling that there's maybe some stuff going on in their life that doesn't really have to do with you, maybe, that might be impacting the way they're acting, and that it may not be specifically about any sort of like dynamic between you guys, but maybe just some other stuff going on in his life. So I'm going to do a reading kind of just focusing on what's going on in his life right now. Not necessarily where you're involved, but just kind of like a general snapshot of what's going on with him, to kind of give you just a little bit better insight about why to kind of explain why he may have been acting a little differently. So it's going to be a 3-card reading. Sorry, I moved the cards a little closer to me because I'm kind of holding them in a weird way so that they're in the picture, but I just want them to stay in the picture so you guys can see that I'm just, you know, shuffling them and drawing them. Okay, so that's the first card. Okay, second card. Okay, third card. Alrighty. So with this deck, we're not going to be using reversals, I don't think. Yeah. So we're not using reversals. So regardless of what position it is, it's going to be upright. These are all the correct cards. And okay, so let's go ahead and see what we got here. Wisdom. Universe. And patience and planning. Interesting. Okay, so these are some of the things going on. Ah, that's interesting. So my girlfriend here, not your average trans girl, said that was my first thought on her question, that something was going on in his life that had nothing to do with Red Moon. So interesting. Yeah, I kind of had the same thought, but I kind of pushed it aside and was focusing on this. But my intuition kept saying, no, 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 because I was like going in the wrong direction. So my girlfriend here is also very intuitive. So that's cool that she had that same thought. So wisdom is the first card here. Wisdom. So this, if you're just joining us, we're doing a reading for Red Moon. She's interested in the Capricorn, but things have been a little weird lately, and he hasn't been acting quite the same as he used to. They're friends, but she's interested in something more. So we just kind of like to know what's going on. And right now we're just doing a reading on this guy because we feel that there's a little something more going on in his life that might be impacting why he's been acting a little different. So this card, Wisdom, says, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. This card illustrates that there's a spiritual teacher who's about to influence you or step into your life to impart his or her wisdom. This is in reference to the guy. Look around. Is there someone in your life who has the acumen, education, knowledge, and ability to integrate spirituality and its laws into the constraints of the physical world? This could be a compassionate person who offers guidance and inspiration. It reminds you that you're so much more than a physical being. You're also a spiritual being with unlimited potential. You may have also drawn this card to confirm that it's time to reach out and find an organization or group of like-minded souls. Being part of a group where you can be yourself, share your thoughts, and get valuable feedback can infuse you and encourage you to be all that you can be. Kindred support helps you live life to your highest ideals, finding the true inspiration and enlightenment that's part of your soul. Over time, the student often becomes the teacher, so don't be surprised when others seek you out and find you. This card of wisdom is letting you know that you have so much to share, whether you realize it or not. And if any of you are interested in traditional tarot, this card is like the Hierophant in a regular tarot deck. So As far as this particular person, the Capricorn guy, and this wisdom card, there's a lot of different ways that that can be interpreted. Um, could be, you know, that he's perhaps starting to hang out with some different types of people and is perhaps, you know, the big thing I really get intuitively, that just kind of what comes through, you know, sometimes it's good to just kind of not think so much about what the book says, but I kind of feel like he's doing some soul searching. Um, like, you know, perhaps some things are coming up in his life and he's starting to think about things that perhaps he hasn't really ever thought of before. Um, that's kind of what comes to my mind. And this is certainly a time period with the Venus retrograde where a lot of people are definitely doing some deep thinking. You know, we're all tending to be thinking about something. So um, that's just kind of my thought there, is that perhaps he's just has a lot on his mind in general. Could be about any number of things. Um, so here we have the universe, card 21. And let's see, where is this? So Red Moon says, I invited him to go out somewhere, and at first it seemed like he was fine with it, but I saw his face change, and he totally rejected my offer. Yeah, it's kind of hard to say, like, it can be very difficult sometimes to interpret why things happen, especially if you don't, um, you know, specifically ask or bring it up. You know, it's really hard to know. Um, but that's really, you know, that's definitely, it's strange. See, the thing I'm thinking of is sometimes someone, like, faces and expressions, they are so crazy because, you know, it's possible that he was thinking of something totally different and maybe had that expression and it wasn't directed towards you. Or maybe it was. I mean, it's just really hard to say, but that sucks that that happened. I'm sorry. Yeah, you felt as if you asked him to go on a date with you and he rejected you. Yeah. Well, and the thing that sucks is sometimes, you know, especially when you're moving from a friendship state with someone to a romantic state, there can be a lot of awkwardness and, like, on both sides, you know, because maybe he wasn't really certain whether you were taking it to that level or whether it was just on a friend basis. And so much of the time, we don't just come out and say what's on our mind. That's just kind of not the norm in this world, as people tend to beat around the bush or, you know, be more subtle about things. And it can cause some problems for everyone because people just don't come right out and say what they're really thinking. And it can, and when we do try to come right out and say what we're thinking, sometimes it can seem even more awkward, you know? Like, do you want to go with me to this place, like, on a date? You know, like, how weird is that? There's just no easy answer. So, anyhow, that bush, I'm not sure where they're going with that. But anyhow, okay, moving on. Let's move on because I am very hungry and I don't want to be distracted from this reading. So, the universe, number 21. Um, so this card symbolizes completion, triumph, peace, liberation, and fulfillment. Everything you strive for is within your reach. Meet it halfway and grab it. So this card represents work that's been accomplished, like stuff that this person has been working towards. And it also represents the wisdom that you've gained along the way. So that's interesting because the first card in his reading for the Capricorns, was wisdom. So it could also be that, oh, I get it, beat around the bush. Okay. Red Moon went on to say, it's as if he's scared to go somewhere with me. I felt so bad because of the way he reacted. And my mood turned very sad. Yeah, I don't blame you. That seems like a really, really horrible experience. I'm sorry you had to go through that. I do hope that things will get better, and hopefully you can talk to him and maybe have, huh? Yeah, that seems like a really kind of tricky thing that you went through, Red Moon. Um, just on a general advice level, if you guys are already friends, then hopefully there's some way that maybe you could just talk to him. As nervous as that may make you, um, not necessarily, and also maybe right now isn't the best time. Like I was talking earlier in this video, Venus is retrograde right now. It's really not the best time to start new relationships. It might be a good time to think about starting new relationships, but it's not the best time astrologically to take those actions. So, for one reason or another, maybe it's just not the best time. Maybe better to wait a couple weeks before you really push forward with that. That might be a good idea. But I'm saying, maybe just talk to him as a friend and ask him maybe how things are. Maybe check in with him. I don't know. It's really hard to say. Relationship stuff is tricky, very tricky. But um, the main thing with this universe card is talking about how this person is in a place where they're free to travel in whatever direction their heart desires. They're experiencing a connection to the universe. One of the things that I'm kind of getting is, possibly this person is going through an awakening experience. Maybe they're really finally, like, maybe they're tapping into some really deep stuff, and there's, there's also the possibility that, um, you know, uh, you know, maybe they feel that they understand that you're wanting something more romantic, and maybe they don't feel that way, but they don't really know how to go about talking to you about that. Um, I mean, that's a possibility. I'm not saying that's how it is, but really the best advice for any sort of situation like this is just one way or another to just try to communicate honestly with them. Um, and, sometimes that could just be asking them questions. It doesn't have to be specifically right away saying, are you interested in dating me? It doesn't have to be that. Just having a conversation with them about dating in general, or where they're at right now in their life, or what's going on in their life. These having an honest conversation about that sort of thing can help you kind of have a better understanding about whether they might be interested, because maybe you might learn something in the conversation where you learn that maybe they're not looking to date anyone right now. Maybe they're exploring some whole other side of life. Who knows? But definitely, yeah, it definitely seems like, I feel like they're going through a lot of thinking. Like, I think they're just really wrapped up in their own mind right now, and in their own head. And that ultimately, I think that you shouldn't really take it personally. I think that a lot of the weirdness that's been going on between the two of you is because he's going through some transformation and some deep thinking, um, and just kind of really like in his head. And if I remember correctly, you're a Virgo red moon, and so being a Virgo, you totally understand what it means to be in your own head. Yes, you're a Virgo. So, yeah, you more than anyone know what it's like to be in your head. I kind of feel like that is what he's going through right now. He's experiencing kind of just being stuck, wrapped up in his own mind. So that's kind of what I feel intuitively. So this last card, patience and planning. Um, so let's see real quick. Patience and planning. Well, this is just taking a minute because the way this thing is set up. This is a deck that I used to use a lot, but haven't really used it in a while. It is set up a pretty cool way, but it's a little difficult to find. Here we go. Okay. So, okay. So it's interesting. Okay, so this card is specifically talking. Now remember, this is about what he's going through right now. So this is talking about that he might be going through a time where he's pausing, resting, assessing, and rethinking what's in front of him before continuing. So in regards to your guys' connection, because that's the specific intention of this is, where is he at, but also, the question of the connection. Maybe he's just taking time to really think about things, really think about how he feels, and just getting really clear on it. It's also talking about reevaluating goals, specifically about what he might be seeking, his finances, and even relationships. He might be taking time to review each area one by one because he doesn't feel rushed because he wants to have a successful future. When something's really important to you, you're not going to rush it. And that's the other thing is that when one thing to keep in mind is, any time that a friendship transitions into more of a romance, there's that risk, and you know, and both people have to ask themselves, is the risk of a romance worth risking the friendship? Because if things don't work out too well, then there's always that fear that things could, that the friendship is lost too. Now, of course, that doesn't mean it has to be that way. Lots of people, you know, break up and still stay friends, but most people, it doesn't work out that great when that happens. So, maybe he's feeling the exact same thing you are, but he's just really wanting to take the time to know how he should respond or how he should move forward because of that risk of losing, of the friendship being at risk, because that's at risk if a relationship gets started. So, I mean, ultimately, regardless of what it is exactly that he's thinking about, I think the main message here is that he's got a lot on his mind. And ultimately, you know, maybe next time you see him, just kind of have that perspective that he has a lot on his mind and that he's been thinking about a lot of things. And perhaps just try to like not take it personally and maybe just try to have a fresh start with him, where, just try to set it aside from your mind that anything weird happened and just, try to touch base and connect with him from a fresh point of view. And so I guess that's really just my best advice is between these cards and what I feel intuitively is try not to take it personally. And, maybe wait until the retrogrades are over before you really push for something to shift. But it doesn't mean you could still, maybe casually bring up the subject, maybe try to kind of see where he's at in a different way without really being direct. Sophia, I would love to do a reading for you, but I'm getting ready to log off. But I'm going to be back on in a couple of hours, probably about 2 or 3 hours. So if you'd like to subscribe or check back on my video on my channel in a few hours, then I definitely would be happy to do a reading for you. There's a few other people that are going to be coming back later on, but it's almost 2 hours that I've been on. You're welcome, Red Moon. I wish I could have given you some more concrete information, but it is kind of hard sometimes when reading for someone else. But I definitely think that it's, just that he has a lot on his mind and that it doesn't really have to do with you. I don't think he was rejecting you specifically. Um, Alrighty, thanks. Well, I really enjoyed reading for everyone today. And if you enjoyed this video, if you enjoyed being part of this reading, then definitely think about subscribing. I know I don't have a lot of content. I have no content up right now, but that'll be changing. I'm hoping to be doing readings a lot more often and definitely making them available to people live. I had a lot of fun, and I hope you have a wonderful night. Good luck, all of you. Please do check back and let me know how you're doing. I'll be thinking of you guys. And I hope you have a great night and an awesome new moon. I'll be back on in probably about 3 hours. So have a wonderful night.